In the summer of 1941, the United States Army faced a critical deficiency that threatened its ability to wage modern mechanized warfare, while German forces demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of combined arms operations across Europe. American armored units still relied on towed artillery pieces that struggled to keep pace with fast-moving tank formations. This disconnect between mobile armor and static artillery support would soon be addressed by one of the war's most successful weapon systems, the M7 105mm Howitzer Motor Carriage. The Army's armored force, still in its infancy, desperately needed self-propelled artillery that could provide immediate fire support to advancing tank units. Traditional towed artillery operated from rear positions, requiring time-consuming displacement procedures that left attacking armor vulnerable during critical moments. What commanders needed was artillery that could move with the tanks, shoot on the move, and survive in the forward battle area. Devers takes charge. On August 1, 1941, Major General Jacob L. Devers assumed command of the armored force with a mandate to transform American armored doctrine and equipment. An experienced artilleryman with a reputation for cutting through bureaucratic obstacles, Devers immediately recognized that effective armored warfare required organic, mobile fire support. His vision went beyond simply mounting howitzers on tracks. He wanted artillery that could fight alongside tanks as equal partners in the combined arms team. Devers' Chief of Artillery, Brigadier General Edward H. Brooks, proposed a practical solution: adapt the proven M3 medium tank chassis to carry the standard M2A1 105mm howitzer. The M3 was already in mass production, ensuring adequate chassis availability without disrupting tank manufacturing. This pragmatic approach would accelerate development while leveraging existing industrial capacity. On October 1, 1941, Devers formally recommended building two prototypes designated T-32, with Baldwin Locomotive Works selected as the manufacturer. The initial design mounted the howitzer in an open-topped fighting compartment, trading overhead protection for crew work space and ease of operation. Engineers removed some rear armor to improve access for servicing the weapon, recognizing that maintainability in field conditions was crucial. Rapid development and testing. The first T-32 prototype arrived at Fort Knox on February 5, 1942, for evaluation by the Armored Force Board. In an extraordinary display of efficiency, the board completed its assessment in just 4 days, immediately shipping the vehicle away for modifications and production preparation. This lightning-fast approval process reflected both the urgency of the requirement and the fundamental soundness of the design. The Armored Force Board's requested modifications demonstrated practical combat thinking. Frontal armor height was increased to better protect the crew from enemy fire. Side armor was actually lowered to facilitate easier crew access, a counterintuitive decision that prioritized functionality over protection. The howitzer's traverse was expanded to 45 degrees, significantly improving tactical flexibility. Most importantly, a .50 caliber M2 machine gun on a rotating mount was added for anti-aircraft and ground defense. While modifications proceeded, Devers arranged production of 314 half-track-based T-19 105mm Howitzer Motor Carriages as interim training vehicles. These stopgap weapons, available from January 1942, allowed the 1st and 2nd Armored Divisions to begin developing tactics and procedures for mobile artillery employment. This parallel approach ensured crews would be ready when the definitive M7 became available. Into production. March 1942 saw the first production M7s roll off American Locomotive Works assembly lines. Following abbreviated testing by both the Armored Force Board and Ordnance Department, the vehicle received official standardization in April 1942, a mere 2 months after prototype approval. This compressed timeline, virtually impossible in peacetime, demonstrated American industry's ability to rapidly field new weapon systems under wartime pressure. The production M7 weighed 50,634 pounds combat loaded, significantly lighter than the M3 tank despite carrying a large caliber howitzer. Maximum road speed reached 25 miles per hour, sufficient to maintain pace with armored formations. The vehicle could climb 60-degree grades, cross 7.5-foot trenches, and surmount 24-inch vertical obstacles. With 48-inch fording capability and a 62-foot turning radius, the M7 possessed mobility matching that of the tanks it supported. Power came from the Continental R975C1, a 340-horsepower air-cooled radial engine adapted from aircraft use. This 9-cylinder power plant, produced under license from Curtiss-Wright, drove a synchronized 5-speed transmission. The 179-gallon fuel capacity provided an operational range of 85 to 125 miles, depending on terrain and tactical conditions. Design features and armament. The M7's open-topped fighting compartment represented a calculated trade-off between protection and operational efficiency. While exposed to overhead fire and weather, crews enjoyed excellent visibility and communication, crucial advantages for artillery observers coordinating with supported units. Canvas covers on curved supports provided weather protection when needed. Armor protection varied by location. Frontal lower hull armor ranged from 2 to 4.5 inches, while upper surfaces were 0.5 inches thick. Side armor measured 1.5 inches on lower surfaces and 0.5 inches above, with rear protection of 1 inch below and 0.5 inches on upper sections. This arrangement protected against small arms and shell fragments while keeping weight manageable. The main armament, an M2A1 105mm howitzer on an M4 mount, delivered devastating firepower at ranges up to 12,500 yards. The weapon could elevate from 5 to plus 35 degrees, significantly less than the towed version's 65-degree maximum due to vehicle floor constraints. High-angle fire required positioning the entire vehicle on slopes, limiting tactical flexibility in certain situations. Traverse limitations, 35 degrees right and 15 degrees left, initially concerned traditionalist artillerymen accustomed to 360-degree capability. However, combat experience proved that skilled crews could quickly reposition vehicles to engage targets beyond traverse limits. As one Field Artillery Journal article noted in December 1943, the only answer is drill, drill, and more drill. Ammunition and crew initial production M7s carried 57 rounds of 105mm ammunition, increased to 69 rounds in May 1942 by removing 2 crew seats. Standard loadouts included high explosive, smoke, and anti-tank rounds, providing versatility for various missions. Additional ammunition traveled in towed trailers carrying 42 rounds each, with battalion service batteries providing continuous resupply. The 7-man crew comprised a driver, section chief, gunner, and 4 cannoneers. The section chief commanded the vehicle and coordinated fire missions. The gunner operated the Howitzer sighting system and controls. Cannoneers handled ammunition, operated the breech, and serviced the weapon. Personal armament included 3 .45 caliber submachine guns with 45 rounds each, providing close-in defense capability. The 50 caliber M2 machine gun, mounted on a 360-degree rotating ring, served dual anti-aircraft and ground defense roles. The distinctive rounded cupola housing this position inspired the British nickname Priest, as it resembled a church pulpit. Standard ammunition loads included 300 rounds of 50 caliber, though crews often carried extra ammunition in unauthorized storage locations. Combat debut, North Africa. The M7's combat baptism came during Operation Torch in November 1942. The 1st Armored Division fielded mixed batteries of M7s and half-track mounted T-19s, while the 2nd Armored Division received limited numbers. Early combat reports validated the self-propelled artillery concept, with M7s successfully keeping pace with armor advances and providing timely fire support. British forces received their first M7s through Lend-Lease following the fall of Tobruk in June 1942. President Roosevelt's emergency shipment of 300 Sherman tanks and 100 M7s arrived at Suez in September, just in time for the Second Battle of El Alamein in October. British assessments declared the M7 a great success, particularly praising its mobility and reliability in desert conditions. The French military, rearming after the Allied liberation of North Africa, eventually received 283 M7s through Lend-Lease. These vehicles proved instrumental in rebuilding French armored capabilities for the liberation of their homeland. Tactical employment and doctrine. The March 1942 Armored Division reorganization established 3 armored field artillery battalions per division, each fielding 18 M7s in 3 6-gun batteries. This organization provided each armored combat command with dedicated artillery support that could maintain continuous contact during rapid advances. FM 1760, Armored Division Artillery, published in August 1942, revolutionized American artillery doctrine. Rather than firing from static positions behind the lines, armored artillery would accompany attacking elements as mobile fire support. M7 batteries routinely attached to leading combat teams, providing immediate suppressive fires, engaging enemy armor when necessary, and establishing hasty defensive positions. This aggressive employment philosophy succeeded brilliantly. In March 1943, M7s from the 5th Armored Field Artillery Group engaged German tanks with direct fire in Tunisia, destroying one and driving off others. Such flexibility would have been impossible with towed artillery. Production evolution. As M4 Sherman tank production accelerated, the M7 benefited from shared chassis improvements, stronger bogie assemblies, improved transmissions, and additional external storage appeared on later production vehicles. Combat experience drove modifications, including folding armor panels, added in fall 1943, to protect crew members and ammunition racks. Production ceased in August 1943 after fulfilling the initial 2008-14 vehicle order, but September's Army Ground Forces reorganization created new requirements. Production resumed in March 1944, ultimately reaching 3,490 M7s. The M7B1 variant, based on the M4A3's chassis with a more powerful Ford GAA engine, added 826 vehicles between March 1944 and February 1945. Global service. By war's end, 73 armored field artillery battalions operated M7s, 48 in armored divisions, and 25 in independent battalions, providing additional support. The European theater received 18 independent battalions, while 3 served in the Pacific. Even Marine Corps units adopted M7s, with the 1st and 6th Marine Divisions fielding 4-gun platoons during the Battle of Okinawa. British forces, receiving 832 M7s through Lend-Lease, developed innovative variants. Defrocked priests, or kangaroos, removed the howitzer to create armored personnel carriers. A handful received 9.75-inch chemical mortars for bunker busting, though these proved unsuccessful in combat trials. Korean War and beyond. The M7's combat career extended into the 1950s during the Korean War. However, the mountainous terrain exposed the vehicle's limited elevation as a critical weakness. The M7B2 modification increased elevation to 65 degrees by raising the gun mount, with 127 conversions completed. Cold War military aid programs distributed surplus M7s worldwide to NATO and Allied nations. The vehicle remained in U.S. service until the mid-1950s, when the fully turreted M52 replaced it. The interim M37, based on the M24 Chaffee light tank chassis, saw limited production with only 316 built. Legacy and lessons. The M7 105mm Howitzer Motor Carriage succeeded brilliantly in its intended role, validating the self-propelled artillery concept for American forces. Its development story, from recognized need to combat deployment in under a year, demonstrated American industrial capability at its finest. More importantly, the M7 proved that effective combined arms operations required artillery able to fight alongside tanks as equal partners. Design compromises that initially concerned traditionalists, limited traverse, reduced elevation, open-topped fighting compartment, proved acceptable in combat. Skilled crews adapted to these limitations through training and innovative tactics. The M7's reliability, mobility, and firepower more than compensated for its shortcomings. Perhaps the M7's greatest contribution was doctrinal rather than technical. It forced American artillerymen to abandon their preference for deliberate static fire support in favor of aggressive mobile operations. This cultural shift prepared the Army for modern maneuver warfare and influenced artillery development for decades afterward. Today, preserved M7s stand guard at museums and memorials across America, including examples at Fort Knox's Patton Museum, Fort Stewart's 3rd Infantry Museum, and Fort Sill's Artillery Museum. These silent veterans represent more than obsolete technology. They embody the innovation, adaptation, and industrial might that helped secure Allied victory in World War II. For the crews who fought in them, from North Africa to Okinawa, the M7 Priest provided the mobile firepower that made American armored warfare truly combined arms warfare, forever changing how artillery supports maneuver forces in combat.